Sagrajatam Sagana Raghunatham Vitam Stam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Harijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sagana Lalita Shri Vishakham Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Iti Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasari Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaur Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaur Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Prabhupada, Srila Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Prabhupada, Srila Jaya Guru Deva, Jaya Guru Deva, Guru Deva, Srila Jayam Vishnupad Paramahansa Paripada Acharya Sarvaswati Srimad Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai. ISKCON founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jayam Vishnupad Paramahansa Pariprajakacharya Stotra Sri Srimad Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Prabhupada Ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Prem Se Kaho Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivas Adi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopinath Shamakunda Radha Kunda Giri Govardhan Ki Jai. Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai. Navadvip Dham Ki Jai. Jamuna Mai Ki Jai. Ganga Mai Ki Jai. Tulsi Devi Ki Jai. Bhakti Devi Ki Jai. Samveta Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. Nitai Gaur Premanande Hari Hari Bol. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Sri Guru and Sri Gauranga. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
It's a great pleasure and privilege for me to be with you today in the place where I took birth spiritually in Boston. I will speak something about my spiritual journey that culminated in my meeting Srila Prabhupada and surrendering to him in Boston. In my youth, I aspired to attain perfect happiness. And soon I realized that such happiness could not be achieved materially, but only spiritually. And through reading spiritual books, I came to understand that to achieve spiritual perfection, I needed a guru. In fact, I read that I didn't even have to choose the guru. He was already there. All I had to do was find him. So whenever I heard about a guru anywhere, even 1,000 miles away, I would go to meet him. One teacher I met was a Zen master, supposedly enlightened and certified by another enlightened master in Japan. I had read a book he had written, and when I heard that he was holding a 3-day retreat at his ashram in Rochester, New York, I went. Upon my arrival, I found that his students were not very happy. But I thought, anyway, they're just students. Let me meet the master. During the retreat, he held meditation sessions in which everyone had to sit up straight and look at the wall, concentrating on some object. The master walked around with a stick. How can I stop that? It's these messages. They're making a sound.
I think you can mute.
Huh? But it's not coming. The sound's not coming from here.
Oh, it's coming from your computer.
Yeah. Well, anyway, let's do that here. This. Excuse me. Yeah, so during the retreat, he held meditation sessions in which everyone had to sit up straight and look at the wall, concentrating on some object he gave us. The master walked around with a stick, and if he thought that any of us was falling asleep or that someone's mind was wandering, he would hit the offender with the stick. After one such sorry about that. I think we should be okay now. So after the session, the participants would meet in their dining hall where there were wooden tables and benches. And so I sat at a table with the master and some of his students. And one of his students asked him about his recently having become angry. Yes, it's true, he admitted. I lost my temper. I shouldn't have. I started to doubt whether he was my perfect master. Still, I had read that a Zen master might appear ordinary and that one might not recognize him. So I thought, maybe this is part of it. But my doubt remained. Later, he came to Boston, near Brandeis University, where I was studying, and gave a talk. And after his talk and demonstration, someone in the audience asked him about Vedanta. I have enough trouble keeping up with Zen, he answered. How do you expect me to know about Vedanta? My previous doubt was confirmed. He is not my perfect master. Then a Hatha yogi came to Brandeis to give a lecture. He had long hair and a beard and flowing robes. He said that by yoga, you could attain complete mastery over your bodily functions, including the movements of your bowels. You could actually command your intestines, ascending colon advance, transverse colon advance, descending colon advance, and finally, rectum pass. I was really looking for a guru, so I thought, anyway, maybe. After the lecture, I tried to meet the Swami, but he was leaving for the airport. I wanted to ride with him in his car, but there was no room. So I rode with some of his students. On the way, they discussed the various foods they missed since they had joined the ashram. So I started to have some doubts. But then I thought, anyway, they're just the students. The master may be on a much higher level. When we arrived at the airport, I beheld the Swami. There he was, long flowing hair, beard, draping orange robes, a flower in his hair, a twinkle in his eyes, the very picture of Indian spirituality. But then I saw him very tightly embracing his women disciples. And then I knew he is not my perfect master. I have to keep looking. Next, I heard of an enlightened psychology professor who was teaching at Antioch College in Ohio, which was known as a progressive university. And I wanted to meet him immediately. Ready to do anything to find my guru, I got in my car and drove the 700 miles. When I arrived with great anticipation and eagerness, I searched out the professor's office and inquired about him from his secretary. He's playing golf, she informed me. Playing golf? I thought he was supposed to be enlightened. That is his Zen, she replied. Oh no, I thought, playing golf? He is not my perfect master. Although I was disappointed about the professor, the Antioch campus was full of people interested in spiritual life. And while I was there, I spoke to some of them. Some students in the student union told me about a guru who had recently visited the campus. The guru is in the heart, he had said, where he sits on a lotus flower. You can actually see him and speak with him. Wow, I thought, that sounds attractive. That night, I tried to focus on my heart. And indeed, I got a definite impression that there was a divine personality there with whom I could have a sublime personal relationship. And he seemed just about to speak. I was very excited and I became eager to meet him. Back at Brandeis, one of my psychology professors invited J. Krishnamurti to speak. I attended the lecture, and during a break, I told my professor that I wanted to meet Krishnamurti. Why? My professor asked. I may want him to be my guru, I replied. Oh, he doesn't accept disciples, my professor said. He doesn't even touch money. My professor was impressed, but I wasn't. I thought, if he's actually able to help people, why should he refuse? Just to be renounced? He is not my perfect master. I kept searching. I already had the idea that you don't have to choose your guru, that he is already there. I even had a mental picture of what he looked like, and he didn't have hair. All the swamis and yogis I had encountered had long hair and beards, so I was beginning to despair. How am I ever going to meet my guru? Then one day I saw a poster on campus, lecture, Bhagavad Gita as it is, Swami Bhaktivedanta. My friends and I were supposed to go to the movies that night, but I wanted to attend the lecture instead. When I suggested that, however, one friend in particular got really upset. "Why can't you be normal like other people?" she complained. "All you want to do is see swamis and yogis." And the argument became so intense that I decided not to go. I didn't want to disappoint my friends, so I tried to go along with their idea. But something inside me was impelling me to go to the lecture. Finally, I said, "Okay, let's go to a later show. But first, I have to go to the lecture by the Swami. I promise he will be the last one I ever go to see." My friends reluctantly came along, but because we'd been arguing, we arrived at the auditorium late and missed the lecture. Entering the auditorium, I beheld an elderly Indian gentleman sitting on a cushion on stage, Swami Bhaktivedanta. To the side, a young devotee, Satsvarupadas, sang into a microphone, and other devotees were dancing in a circle around the guru. Satsvarupa was singing right into the microphone, and the sound was reverberating off the bare brick walls. One by one, students from the audience jumped up onto the stage and joined in. I also felt like going up, but I knew my friends wouldn't approve. That would have been too much for them. More students were jumping up, climbing on the stage, and joining the circle, dancing. I kept trying to focus my eyes on the Swami, but I couldn't. His effulgence was too great. But I stood up in my place and I was swaying back and forth to the sound of the chanting. When the kirtan ended, one of the devotees announced that they needed a lift to Harvard Square or Boston. As my friends and I were still planning to go to the movie, and it was at Harvard Square, I invited the devotees to ride with us, and everyone piled into my station wagon. I was the driver, and also in the front were two ladies. In the back seat were 3 or 4 devotees, and in the rear compartment were my friends, and I don't even know how many more devotees. I don't think we could have fit anyone else. Satsvarupa was squeezed in the rear with my best friend, Gary. Because of our impersonal readings, my friend was saying that ultimately everything was void. And Satsvarupa was saying, there is no void in the creation of God. But my friend kept insisting, everything is ultimately void. I was overhearing them from the front, and puffed up as I was, I thought, oh, how silly that they are arguing over this. I thought I had it all figured out. So I turned to the back and announced something that I had read in some Zen book. It is not void, and it is not void. But to give it a name, we call it the void. I thought that my pronouncement had resolved the whole controversy, but still, They kept arguing. One of the ladies up front with me was Janava. I had been trying to understand all the different paths and philosophies, so I asked her about Zen. This world seems real, she said, but it is illusory, like images on a movie screen. Now, if you withdraw your consciousness from the screen, you will find that there is a beam of light. I thought, this is the best explanation I've ever heard, even better than the Zen books. She continued, and if you keep following that beam of light back, you come to a point. I thought, wow, this is getting to the void. But then she said, but behind that point, there is a projector. And behind the projector, there is a person. Then I thought, this philosophy encompasses everything that Zen does and more. Then I asked her about Yogananda, because I had read his book, Autobiography of a Yogi. She dismissed him out of hand. Oh, he is just a shopkeeper. Whatever you want, he keeps in stock. You want yoga, he will give you yoga. Whatever you ask for, he pulls off the shelf. Then she said, at his ashram in California, he has a Gandhi Peace Memorial. But Gandhi wasn't a worker for world peace. He was a politician who wanted to drive the British out of India. She just dismissed him. He doesn't even know who Gandhi is. I thought, she is speaking with authority. But I sensed that it couldn't all be coming from her. How was it possible for a girl of only 20 or so years to have so much knowledge and speak with such authority? But she did have authority, and I knew it wasn't coming from her. Then I thought, this must be coming from her teacher. I must meet him. When we got to Harvard Square, I let the devotees out. But as I was about to drive away, I realized that I didn't know how to get in touch with them. How would I meet the guru? I stopped the car at the center of Harvard Square, jumped out, and ran after them. I caught up to one, Petit Pavan. When he stopped, he turned his head and pointed to the crowd around us. You see these people, he said? They are all sleepwalkers. They don't know what they are doing or why. They're just conforming. His words were so intriguing and deep, I wanted to hear more. Suddenly, I became aware of the honking of horns all around us. I left my car in the middle of the roundabout, and the traffic at Harvard Square was backed up. The honking kept getting louder. I want to meet the Swami, I said. Quick, give me the address. Come at 7 tomorrow night, he said. I could hardly wait. The next evening when I arrived, the small storefront temple was packed with young people. Srila Prabhupada was sitting on a cushion at the far end. The walls were decorated with exotic paintings, and the aroma of incense filled the air. When he began speaking, I had difficulty understanding what he was saying. He had a thick Bengali accent, and the philosophy was new to me. But I did hear him say that out of many thousands of men, one will seek perfection. I thought, that's me. He's talking about me. After the lecture, Srila Prabhupada called for questions. Someone asked, since everything comes from God or Krishna, does Maya also come from Krishna? Prabhupada replied that everything comes from Krishna, just like everything comes from the sun. The cloud also comes from the sun, although it covers the vision, although it covers our vision of the sun. But the sun is never covered by the cloud, only our vision is covered. I was burning to ask my question. There are so many swamis and yogis, I began, and each recommends a different process of self-realization, and each says that his is the best. So how do I know which is actually best? Prabhupada responded, what is your goal? Do you want to serve God or do you want to become God? How brilliant, how perfect. I was asking about the means, but to determine the best means, we must first establish the end, the goal. When you seek after God, the Prabhupada said, when you seek after God, God, who is situated in your heart, will give you all facility. But if you want to become God, you will be cheated. You are cheating yourself. How can you become God? You are trying to become God. And how can not God become God? God is always God. The Mayavadi philosopher says that I am God, but by Maya, I am thinking I am not God. So by meditation, I shall become God. But that means he's under the punishment of Maya. God has come under the influence of Maya? How is that? God is great. And if he's under the influence of Maya, then Maya becomes greater than God. So the idea is that as long as we shall continue this hallucination that I am God, there is no question of getting the favor of God. Then you do your own business and try to find yourself whether you are God or something else. As soon as I think I am God, I am cheating myself. Who will help you? That is going on. Everyone is thinking, I am God. So, what are you thinking? You're trying to become God? What is your idea? Or you're thinking there is no God? I'm thinking that there is God, I replied. There is God. You are thinking like that? But I knew that I couldn't cheat him. So I replied, yes. But I can see that I was trying to become God. So you are trying to become God. That means you are not God. Is it not? How you became not God? God is so great that he never becomes not God. So your conclusion should be, I am not that God who is great. I am a different God who sometimes becomes not God. Therefore, you are a different God from that God who is great. Is it not? That's a fact. Because you are part and parcel of God, you are minute God. Therefore, you have the potency of becoming not God. Just like a fire and a spark of the fire. A spark, when it is in the fire, is bright fire. But as soon as it goes out of the fire, it becomes extinguished. But the big fire never becomes extinguished. Similarly, you are not that big fire. You are that small spark. You have fallen down. Therefore, you are not God. Now you have to raise yourself again to the fire, and you will again be a blazing spark. So that is the difference. Every living entity is Brahman, but the supreme Brahman is Krishna. He never becomes not God. We see in Krishna's life, when he was a child on the lap of his mother, he was God. So many demons were killed. He didn't have to meditate to become God. While he was playing, he was God. And when he was fighting on the battlefield of Kurukshetra, he is God. He was God. That is God. Not sometimes not God, sometimes God. That is not God. God is always God in any circumstance. That is God. As Srila Prabhupada was speaking, I got the clear impression that he knew everything about me, that he was seeing right into me, into Waltham, where I had my apartment, into my apartment, into my bathroom, right to the wall on which I had pasted a sign I had inscribed in beautiful ornate lettering, "You are God." My search was over. I offered my obeisances. I had found my perfect master. The devotees put their heads on the floor and offered obeisances. I also kept my head on the floor in surrender for a long time. I felt so glad. I had finally found my perfect master and wanted to surrender fully. At the same time, I also felt ashamed and humiliated. My abominable desire to become God had been exposed. Everyone there knew I had wanted to become God. After some time, I heard sounds indicating that devotees were bringing plates of food, prasad, to their guests. Something inside prompted me to look up. I expected everyone would be glaring at me. You wanted to become God. But no, people were blissfully taking prasad, and when they saw me get up, they simply smiled. Moments earlier, when a devotee had offered Prabhupada a large plate of prasad, he had responded, "I am not God. I cannot eat so much. Distribute." The prasad I was given looked like everything else in the temple. Colorful, attractive, and variegated. Because of macrobiotics and other speculations, I never expected a feast. Where to begin? I picked up what must have been a cauliflower pakora, put it in my mouth, bit into it, and felt an explosion of taste. One by one, I sampled the preparations: butter, sweet rice, every taste new, incomparable. I thought everything was perfect. The guru, the prasad, the chanting. I loved the chanting. Devotees had a sign with the Hare Krishna mantra written in Indian style lettering. During the kirtan, as I was looking at the letters on the sign, they started to move, dissolve, form, and unform themselves. These were the signs I had been looking for, and everything indicated that this was it. From the time Srila Prabhupada answered my question and I bowed my head, I surrendered. From that first meeting, my whole life's purpose began to bring people to meet Srila Prabhupada. And I was able to do that in his personal presence for many years. But when he departed, I wondered, what will be my service now? My whole service had been to bring people to Srila Prabhupada. Now I understand that Srila Prabhupada is always present, and that by speaking of him, hearing about him, remembering him, and, most significantly, by studying his books and following his instructions, by practicing and preaching Krishna consciousness, we can experience his presence. So I can continue doing what I was doing when Srila Prabhupada was personally present, introducing souls to him, which is what I feel most natural doing. Because I know that somehow or other, if someone comes in touch with Srila Prabhupada, his life will be successful. So I could say so much about those early days in Boston. Eventually, I will write a book about it. But the program during that period of 10 days or so when Srila Prabhupada was in Boston was that on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, he would speak at the temple. And Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday, he would have programs outside, usually at a university. And then Sunday would be the Sunday feast and festival. So eventually it became time for Srila Prabhupada to leave. From Boston, he was going on to Columbus, Ohio, and then eventually on to Los Angeles. And up until then, I didn't realize that Srila Prabhupada would leave. And then I thought, maybe this is the one defect, that the spiritual master has to leave. Anyway, we all went to the airport with Srila Prabhupada. And at the airport, I saw that the devotees, many of the devotees were crying. So I asked one of the devotees named Arundhati, she was sort of a confidant back then, why are all the devotees crying? And she replied that Srila Prabhupada had instructed them that on the absolute platform, there is no difference between meeting and separation. Both are occasions of ecstasy. And I thought that that sounded like a good answer, but I wasn't completely sure it was practical. So Srila Prabhupada boarded the flight. And in those days, they didn't have so many security restrictions like now. So we were able to remain at the gate. And, we saw Srila Prabhupada disappear into the plane. And then we saw the plane take off, and all the devotees were standing there looking out the window at the plane. And Arundhati said that Srila Prabhupada had told them that when the spiritual master departs, the disciples should watch the airplane until it disappears in the distance. Just like the gopis watched Krishna's chariot when it was leaving Vrindavan and taking him to Mathura. They kept looking until the last bit of dust that was being raised by the chariot disappeared. So, we came back to the temple, but that thought was in my mind that Srila Prabhupada said on the absolute platform, meeting and separation are the same. Both are occasions of ecstasy. But again, I was wondering, although it sounded perfect, I was wondering how practical it is. And then one day, we were doing Harinam Sankirtan in front of the Copley Square subway station. And suddenly, I felt Srila Prabhupada's presence descend upon me. It was so tangible and vivid. And then, then I thought about what Arundhati had quoted, that, on the absolute platform, there's no difference between meeting and separation. Both are occasions of ecstasy. So, there are like just so many incidents. And I was fortunate in the sense that I had a car. And at that time, the devotees didn't own any motor vehicles. So I got to drive Srila Prabhupada to all his programs. And one of the programs that we went to was at the Harvard Divinity School. And, as you can imagine, the students there were quite bright. You could say brilliant. And Srila Prabhupada, of course, was way beyond any of them. And after his lecture, when he asked for questions, many hands shot up. So one student asked that, you say that by chanting Hare Krishna, all problems can be solved. But, in Russia, there were groups that were chanting the name of Jesus, but nothing really changed. Things only really improved when there was the Bolshevik Revolution. So Srila Prabhupada asked him, so the people in Russia, are they happy now? And the student had to admit, no, they're not. And Srila Prabhupada replied, then what was the use of such revolution? So then another student put his hand up, and he said, you say that by chanting, that by repeating the Hare Krishna mantra, you get a certain result. But couldn't you get the same result by repeating anything? Like counting 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. And Srila Prabhupada replied, of course, that is not possible. But if you want, you can try counting. And when you get tired of counting, you can try chanting. And then he and all the other students laughed. And then one student asked something like, have you seen God? Something like that. Or are you truly happy? And Prabhupada replied, if I tell you falsely that I've seen God or I'm truly happy, will you believe me? And the student said, no. And Srila Prabhupada said, then what is the use of such a question? So one after the other, he was disposing of all these, smart students' questions. And so after the lecture, and the lecture, the questions and answers, and the final kirtan, I was sort of mingling with the crowd, listening to their appreciations of Srila Prabhupada. And suddenly, Jadharani came running up to me and affectionately imitating Srila Prabhupada's voice, she said, so, where is the driver? And I thought, oh my God, Srila Prabhupada is waiting for me. So I ran to the car, and I opened the door and I let him in. And then, the devotees got in. And I started to drive back to the temple. But when I had driven to Harvard, it was light. And now it was dark. And I sort of had an idea of how to get back. But as I kept going, I started to get a sinking feeling that I was lost. So I asked the devotees, does anyone know how to get back to the temple? And Srila Prabhupada, who was sitting with me in the front seat, turned to me and said, is not the driver supposed to know the way? So, I thought I was just being a good guy. I didn't know I was a driver and I had duties. Anyway, nobody was quite sure, but eventually we did make it back to the temple. So, I jumped out, I opened Srila Prabhupada's door, and I said, Srila Prabhupada, I'm sorry that I got us lost on the way back. And he looked at me with such love and compassion, and he said, that's all right. And that really touched me because I had seen how he had disposed of all these brilliant students. And he could have demolished me in a moment. But, he was so kind and compassionate. He forgave me. He looked at me with such love and that's all right. That's all right. And then I thought, he really is perfect. Not only is he brilliant, but he's also very kind and compassionate. So these are just a few memories. I could go on, but maybe we'll stop here. And if any of you want to ask any questions or make any comments, share any reflections, we can open the floor. You can raise your hand, your physical hand or your virtual hand, and we will discuss some more. Hare Krishna, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. ISKCON Boston ki jai.
If you feel shy, you can also type in the chat window as well. Okay, Maharaj, maybe I can start. How many years or how many months or years you served at ISKCON Boston?
Yes, about a year and a half. I met Srila Prabhupada in, I think the end of March in 1969. And then in around October of 1970, Srila Prabhupada announced that he wanted to return to India. and he wanted the number 2 man from each temple to go with him. So Satsvarupa Prabhu then was the temple president in Boston. He was the number 1 man, and I was the number 2 man. I was the temple commander, treasurer, and Sankirtan leader. So I got to go. And I think probably everyone wanted to go. And it was very interesting because Prabhupada's disciple, Rukmini Devi Dasi, she was a pujari. And as I was leaving, yes, so she was married to Bharadraj Prabhu. And Bharadraj Prabhu was actually the first devotee who spoke to me in the lobby. I didn't tell that part of the story, but in the lobby of the auditorium at Brandeis University, when I went to meet the devotees to give them a ride, he was the first devotee who spoke to me. And I had mentioned how down the students of the other swamis and yogis and masters were. Well, he was the opposite. He was like so high on Krishna consciousness. And he just started saying in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna showed his universal form to Arjuna. I mean, he was just going on and on. It was like a stream of nectar. So yeah, he was the first devotee who spoke to me personally. And he was married to Rukmini. So when I was about to leave Boston for India, Rukmini came to me, and in those days we didn't have Gopi Vallabha, whose 50th anniversary we're celebrating now. Because I left before they came. But we did have Jagannath, Baladev, and Subhadra, and she came to me as I was just about to leave and said that she had this feeling that Lord Jagannath was sending me to India. So, yeah.
Thank you, Maharaj, for the answer. We have few devotees in the temple hall. They have a question.
Hello, Maharaj. Thank you for the lecture. Would you please say something about yoga? Because so many devotees wrote.
The voice is not audible. Whoever is asking a question, the voice is not audible.
Okay. I'm asking about Yogananda because so many people read his book and everything, but did Prabhupada say he was an impersonalist, or is he an impersonalist, or can you say anything about that?
Oh, well, what I heard from Janava in the front seat of the car was enough for me to know that he was not, and what she said, and I believe that what she said was coming from Srila Prabhupada, because again, she spoke with such authority and such clarity, that he was a shopkeeper. Whatever you wanted, he would pull off the shelf. And again, he had a monument for Mahatma Gandhi as a world peace worker. He wasn't a world peace worker. He was trying to drive the British out of India. He doesn't even know who Mahatma Gandhi is. So I mean, it's been a long time since I read that book. So, but I think pretty much everyone, until I met Srila Prabhupada, everyone else I had encountered was an impersonalist. Yeah.
Thank you.
Chaitanya Mataji would like to ask a question, please. Unmute yourself and ask the question, please.
Hare Krishna, Maharaj. Thank you so much for these wonderful memories and your wonderful position of being able to be intimate with Srila Prabhupada and spend so much time is so exceptional. Gives you a unique perspective. I was wondering, how can we know that when someone is speaking to us, it is the Guru who is speaking to us?
Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur made a very nice statement on this topic, because that's a very good question. When the Guru is not personally present, how do we get his instructions? And I will, it's such a beautiful quotation. I'll try to find the exact words. So, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur said, "My Guru Dev is residing in many different personalities. If he does not reside in many different personalities, then who will protect me? Those whom my Guru Dev considered close to him are my saviors. But I hope I never have to see the face of such evil-doing rascals as those who have criticized the lotus feet of my Gurudev, or those who have somehow supported such criticism." So, of course, there were many times when devotees asked Srila Prabhupada that now you are with us. So, we have any question and answer. But in the future, when you're no longer with us, how will we get answers to our questions? That question was asked. Other devotees also asked it, but Satsvarupa asked the question. And Srila Prabhupada's reply to Satsvarupa was, "The holy name of Krishna is not And on other occasions also, Srila Prabhupada. And of course, we can also get answers by consulting senior devotees, experienced devotees. Our Guru can manifest his will or speak through these devotees as well. Does that answer the question?
Chaitanya Mataji. Please, you're mute, Mataji. You can unmute yourself.
Thank you. Thank you, Maharaj. That's very helpful. Thank you so much. Please give us your association again soon.
I'd be happy to. Thank you.
Jai
We
Shri
have-
Prabhupada.
We have Shyamu Mohini Mataji and Kanepriya Prabhu. Please unmute yourself, Mataji and Prabhu. Please ask question.
Krishna Maharaj, as I say, our respects goes to you, to your wonderful service. What an example of Guru Nishta. You know, that faith, it's just incredible. Thank you so much. I mean, and I have to agree, it was probably Lord Jagannath in Navagundicha sent you for that huge project in Juhu. And that book is just amazing. And I know it just, East Boston just got it, just the 411 for the devotees over there. I heard that the book, I'll Build You a Temple, is already there. So take advantage of that. Amazing, what amazing realizations. And thank you so much for sharing. And thank you for your selfless and caring disposition to always to everyone. So the same love and compassion that Srila Prabhupada shared with all of you, you are sharing with all of us. Thank you so much, Maharaj.
I do think of Srila Prabhupada when I deal with devotees, how he gave so much of himself in a selfless way to help us. So, yeah, we should try to give people a sense of Srila Prabhupada's care and compassion.
Wonderful feeling.
Maharaj, there's a question in the chat by Shwetadvipa Prabhu. He's asking, please accept my humble obeisances. Thank you, Guru Maharaj. Did any of your friends become attracted to Srila Prabhupada and became devotee?
You know, my friends were all supposedly spiritual seekers. Like I mentioned, my best friend Gary, who was in the back of the station wagon with Satsvarupa. And I thought, wow, this is it, you know, this is what we've been looking for all these years. We finally found it. But they didn't see it that way. None of them really did. There was one, a lady, she was sort of interested, and she was coming to programs. She was nice, she was pious. But then, you know, the end of the semester came and she just went back to her hometown of Pittsburgh, and that was the end of it. So no, none of them did. None of them did. Although there was one, he didn't become a devotee, but he actually came to Juhu and visited me. He was older than I was, but we were in the same dorm at Brandeis University. And he visited me in Juhu. So that was nice. That was nice, but none of them became devotees.
Thank you, Maharaj. Is anyone from the temple hall would like to ask any question? Giridharan Prabhu? Okay. In the meantime, we get a question from the temple hall. I would like to ask a question. When you were in Boston, did you leave the college by then? And did you also leave, your parents, you were already staying away from your parents, but did you take permission from them to live at ISKCON Boston by then?
Those are good questions. So yes, when I met Srila Prabhupada and the devotees, it was maybe a month or two before graduation. And I asked the devotees if I should, complete my studies and get my degree. And they said, yes, you should, because it could be useful in the future. So I went back to the campus, but I was so excited about Krishna consciousness. Whenever I met my fellow students, I would just talk about Krishna consciousness. I wouldn't talk about our studies. But, somehow or other, it seemed that whatever answers I knew, those questions came on the exams, except for one, which was about evolution. And as I was writing my answer about evolution, I realized, oh my God, there's a gap here. I missed something. But then when I got that exam paper back, I got an A. And then I thought, oh my God, the gap wasn't in my understanding, the gap was in the theory itself. So my answer about the theory of evolution was fine. So yeah, I graduated with cum laude. Yeah. So my parents came. They did not give me permission. I didn't ask permission. They wouldn't have given me permission. But they came for my graduation. And they discovered I was in the temple. So I remember when they came, I was in the kitchen peeling potatoes. And my father said, I spent so much money to put you through the university and you're peeling potatoes. So yeah, they were not very happy. But we would do kirtan in the park, and so once when we went to the park, my mother actually sort of joined in the kirtan. The devotees would dance in a circle, and she sort of joined them, and they did service over the years. They did service, and eventually they met Srila Prabhupada, and yeah, I'm sure they got a lot of spiritual benefit, partly because of my involvement in Krishna consciousness per se, and partly because of the service they did over the years. Yeah.
Thank you, Maharaj. Appreciate that. I think there's a hand raised from the temple hall. I know they would like to skip a question, but if there is anyone from the temple hall who would like to ask a question, now is the time, please.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. If you could please share any instances of reciprocation that the deities showed towards you when you first joined the temple, or even after, just to inspire us, because we all wait for that day.
Yeah. Well, when I joined, we just had small Radha Krishna deities. At that stage, we didn't even have Lord Jagannath. He came later when we moved from 95 Glenville Avenue to 40 North Beacon Street. That was a big building. In fact, that was the first building that ISKCON owned. But yeah, we just had the little Radha Krishna deities. And in those days, if you had first initiation, you could do deity worship, and they needed pujaris. So Satsvarupa recommended me for initiation. Srila Prabhupada initiated me on July 5th, 1969. But for me, the strongest memory of the deity worship was the Mahaprasad. All the food was prasad because we offered it to the deities. But then the prasad that was on the deity's plate, that was called Mahaprasad. So I used to think that the Mahaprasad tasted different from the regular prasad. But I wasn't sure if it was my imagination or what, so I didn't say anything. And then one morning we were sitting on the floor in the temple room having prasad, and Saradia Dasi, she was one of the early devotees in Boston. Saradia, she said to Satsvarupa, and I was sitting right next to Satsvarupa. She said to Satsvarupa, did you ever notice how the Mahaprasad tastes like there's a thin sprinkling of sugar all over it? And I thought, wow, so she's also tasting the difference. It's not just my imagination. So yeah, I would say that was my earliest vivid memory of the deity's reciprocation in the form of the Mahaprasad. Yeah.
Thank you, Maharaj.
Hare Krishna.
We have Krishnan Prabhu who's raising his hands. Krishnan Prabhu, please unmute yourself and ask your question.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, my humble obeisances to you. I've read your first book, the Watering the Seed or Watering the Plant, but I haven't read your new book yet. I hope to read it. Maharaj, my question for you was about your experience when you said everybody in the temple knew that you wanted to be God, but all the devotees were so compassionate to you and they all just smiled at you. My question to you is, how can we learn to be compassionate to the people who we encounter and who are probably not close to Krishna consciousness and who are just, probably just bystanders. They just don't even know. How can we be compassionate to them? Just if we could get your advice, Maharaj.
Well, I think all the devotees in the temple who are so happy and compassionate and kind, they were reflecting Srila Prabhupada's mood. And even though he could cut, like they said, cut away at our false attachments and misconceptions. But at heart, he's very kind and loving and compassionate. So I think if we just think of Srila Prabhupada, we should feel, compassion. And of course, reading Srila Prabhupada's books will reinforce our devotional mood. And the reason I say so is because I'm thinking specifically of Prahlad Maharaj's prayers to Lord Nrsingadev and how compassionate he was. And when Srila Prabhupada was translating the 7th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, which includes the story of Prahlad Maharaj and Nrsingadev and Hiranyakashipu. Prabhupada's secretary or servant said to Srila Prabhupada that your mood reminds me of Prahlad Maharaj's mood. And Srila Prabhupada replied, you think so? And the disciple said, yes. And Prabhupada said, I think so too. So, yeah, by reading his books, and I'm just thinking specifically of the example of Prahlad Maharaj, you get that sense of compassion. And Prahlad Maharaj, he prayed that his father, who was such a terrible demon and who tried to torture him, who in so many ways and tried to kill him, but still he prayed to Nrsingadev to deliver his father. So that's really, it's really being kind and compassionate. And that was Srila Prabhupada's mood. And so by thinking of them, by thinking of Srila Prabhupada, Prahlad Maharaj, we have so many examples in our line and in our scriptures. We should be kind and compassionate to everyone. Although we can avoid those who are envious. It's stated in Srimad Bhagavatam, Prema Maitri Kripo Peksha Sakaroti Samadhyama. That the Madhyam Bhakta, Prema, he should give his love to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Maitri, he should make friendship with devotees. Kripa, he should show mercy to the innocent by preaching. And upeksha, he should neglect the envious. So, and Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, commenting on this verse, says that although the devotee should neglect the envious, he shouldn't go to preach to them because they'll just become more inimical. But he said that the devotee can pray for the envious. That's a good practice, sadachar. Like Prahlad Maharaj, he prayed for the envious. But it may not be good to try to preach to them because it can, as Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur says, it can increase the animosity on both sides.
Thank you, Maharaj. I would like to ask a question. When you were there at ISKCON Boston in the initial days, how was the mood among the devotees that time? What was the vision of the devotees that time? Was there any vision there to the devotees that we should do these things, like we should have a temple or we should have more devotees? Or was there any kind of a plan, goal for the devotees? And how was the dealing with of yours with His Holiness Satsvarup Maharaj and with other devotees? Sorry, too many questions, but just wanted to know what was going on during that time.
Yeah. Well, I met Srila Prabhupada and surrendered at 95 Glenville Avenue. And I wouldn't say that we really had a vision as such, but we were just following Srila Prabhupada's instructions. But the time came for us to renew the lease. And, within my heart, I felt we should get a better place and a bigger place. And so I was looking, but we couldn't come up with anything. And so so we had to renew the lease on a Friday. And Satsvarupa, he was ready to renew the lease. But again, something in my heart was just pushing me that we have to get a better and bigger place. So I told Satsvarupa, anyway, he won't know until the end of the day on Friday that you didn't renew the lease. So that will give us the weekend. So let's see if maybe we'll come up with something over the weekend. And we did. We came up with 40 North Beacon Street, which was a big place. Again, the first property that ISKCON owned. And it had been like a funeral parlor. And yeah, they had a forget what you call it, but like a lift for the coffins. It was for the coffins to bring the coffin from the ground floor to the basement or vice versa. So we used to use that for the books. So as soon as we got that building, Srila Prabhupada, he was very happy and he wanted to move the press to Boston. So the press came to Boston and we had the whole operation in the basement. And we published many books there. And Srila Prabhupada was very involved in the details of the books, including the covers. I remember we published Easy Journey to Other Planets. And Srila Prabhupada said that, in one corner there should be like the earth, the material world, then there should be outer space, and then in the other corner, there should be the spiritual world, Goloka Vrindavan. And then there should be a devotee like flying through outer space on his way from the material world to the spiritual world, holding chanting beads. And Prabhupada said, the beads, by the beads we go. So, yeah. And when Prabhupada left after his first visit, we found a note, like a handwritten note, in which he thanked Satsvarupa, Brahmananda, maybe Advaita, and me. And I was still quite a new devotee. I was surprised, but he left a note thanking us for arranging our own building in which we could have our own printing press.
Maharaj, your dealings with His Holiness Satsvarup Maharaj and his, how was his dealings with even other devotees?
Oh, well, he was my hero. He was so saintly. And he was the editor of Back to Godhead magazine. And he wanted articles. So because of his encouragement, I wrote an article for Back to Godhead about Guru. But because of, the delays in printing, it would be about 4 months between when an article was submitted and when the magazine was printed. And by the time the magazine came out, I was already in India with Srila Prabhupada. And we were in Gorakhpur, staying at the residence. Well, it had been the residence of Hanuman Prasad Podar of Gita Press. And the Back to Godhead with my article arrived. And Srila Prabhupada, called me into his room. His room means it was like a darshan room. And he said, I've read your article in Back to Godhead. It's very nice. And you should take up writing as your first business. And that was it was significant. Then he asked, this turned out to be a sort of guidance, for the rest of my life. And then he said, do you ever think of getting married? And I said, no, I don't, except that I see that the GBCs are married. Now, in the initial days, the way Srila Prabhupada designed ISKCON, the GBC members were householders, and he envisioned them as managers. And then he gave different duties to the sannyasis to travel and visit centers and see that the spiritual programs are going well, and travel to new places, suggest new places for temples. And I thought being a GBC, they were in a different category, maybe better or higher. So when Srila Prabhupada asked, do you ever think of getting married? I said, no, except when I see the GBC members are married. And Prabhupada said, you will never be GBC. Okay. And then he said that, that the demands of the body, such as sex, are like an itch. And if you scratch the itch, the itching might temporarily subside, but then it will come back worse. So he said it's better to tolerate. And then he said not just sex, but all the demands of the senses. It's better to just tolerate. And then he said, so you you remain brahmachari, and after some time I will give you sannyas. So that was, quite a momentous meeting with Srila Prabhupada when he received that BTG article that I had written under Satsrupa Maharaj's encouraging guidance. Yeah. Yeah, he was my hero, for sure. He was my hero.
Thank you, Maharaj. We have a couple of hands, Maharaj. But I just would like to, before asking Malti Devidasi and Nikunjavasini, I would like to welcome Soma Prabhu. He's one of our brothers who had joined in 1971, if I'm not wrong, and he's there with us also. I do not know whether your time and his time overlapped at ISKCON Boston, but on behalf of ISKCON Boston, I would like to welcome him.
Wonderful. Yeah, I noticed him. I was very happy to see him.
So I would like to, now I'd like to request our girls Malti Devidasi to please unmute yourself and ask the question.
Hare Krishna Guru Maharaj, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. All glories to you, Guru Maharaj. It's more than a comment, Maharaj, than a question. Like we see disciples of Srila Prabhupada, everyone had an unusual journey to reach the main point, Srila Prabhupada. But it seems with our material eyes and ears, we see the struggle, how they reached Srila Prabhupada. But as I felt in my heart, I just want to say, Guru Maharaj, that as Krishna came down into the material world with all his paraphernalia, and he did all the pastimes, the same way I felt that Srila Prabhupada came down into the material world with all the associates like yourself, and he performed all the pastimes. It was just, we could see that Juhu story and everything took a lot of struggle to be manifested, but it was already done by you all, Maharaj. It is just a reflection, Guru Maharaj. If you want to say something, Guru Maharaj, please enlighten us.
Yes, I have two responses from two different esteemed godbrothers. One is from His Holiness Individual Swami, and he feels that devotees who are naturally attracted to Srila Prabhupada and are inclined to serve him, that they may have been his associates. And then the other, you could say, contrasting perspective is from His Holiness Niranjana Swami, who says that he doesn't want to take any credit for any piety in his past or present life because he wants all the credit to go to Srila Prabhupada. So, yeah, they're different perspectives and they're both nice. Yeah, both from wonderful godbrothers.
Thank you, Guru Maharaj. That's so beautiful. Thank you.
We have her.
Just an afterthought. I do feel that they're no, I'll leave it at that. That was good enough. I'll leave it at that. Yes, we can go on.
Thank you, Maharaj. Thank you, Malti Mataji. We have Nikunja Vasini Mataji, who has her hand raised. Can you unmute yourself and ask the question, please?
Hare Krishna, Maharaj. Please accept my humble obeisances. I apologize, my video is not turned on. I do to have more of a comment than a question. I just want to thank you so much for your take this opportunity to glorify Srila Prabhupada's dearmost disciple. Thank you so much for your guidance and compassion and inspiration and care, which is truly heartfelt for me personally. I have listened to the talk that you have just given with rapt attention, and I was transported, right there, when you were describing all the incidents. I just really appreciate your unwavered and complete surrender and dedication to Srila Prabhupada's mission. When you mentioned how Srila Prabhupada dealt with you, and that he could have easily told you off or become heavy with you at that one point that you mentioned, you have truly adopted that mood, as you were saying in your talk. You have given your time and dedication to everyone who comes to you. And many times I listen to your lectures and you could have, easily become upset or anything like that, but you're so humble and I can really feel Srila Prabhupada's mood. So I pray that I may become a recipient of your mercy. Thank you, Maharaj. And I always feel there's a place for you when I think about my Guru Maharaj, Dr. Charu Maharaj. You are always there, and all the devotees and disciples that were close to Guru Maharaj. Thank you so much.
Right. I always keep this picture nearby of me with His Holiness Bhakti True Swami Maharaj. Sometimes I keep it behind me and sometimes I keep it in front of me so I can see it. But yeah. Well, thank you for saying that.
It's almost 9 o'clock, Maharaj. Okay. Anyone, last call, anyone from the temple hall would like to ask any question?
There are no questions in the temple hall, Prabhu.
Okay. Okay. I think, yeah, there are quite a few devotees who have joined online. Okay, so I would like to make a last call to all the devotees that please, if you want to ask a question, please raise your hand and ask a question.
I had a question for Srila Prabhupada during that first visit, and I would like to share with you my question and Srila Prabhupada's answer. It's in this book, Watering the Seed, which you mentioned, but I found it very instructive. So, before I met Srila Prabhupada, I had the desire to serve humanity. Then from Srila Prabhupada, I heard about the importance of service to Lord Krishna. Still, the question remained, how does God's service relate to man's? In May of 1969, after 1 week of hearing from Srila Prabhupada, I got the chance to ask. Srila Prabhupada had just concluded his lecture, Savai Pumsam Paro Dharmo Yato Bhaktir at Hoksaje Aitukia Pratiyata Yayat Pasu Prasidati. Without spiritual realization, you cannot have peace of mind. If you want peace of mind, peace in the world, peace in your society, peace in your family, simply by amassing money, by material advancement, it will never be possible. But if you improve a little in spiritual life, you will immediately become happy. So now, if you have any questions, you can ask. And I asked, you talk about service to Lord Krishna, I began. How does service to our fellow man come in? Why are you and others coming here? Srila Prabhupada replied. Are we not rendering service? To deliver one from the illusory material existence and bring him to Krishna consciousness is the best service. What is the meaning of service? To give relief from suffering. And Krishna consciousness gives the best relief, as confirmed in the Bhagavatam 126. The best service, the best religion, the best philosophy is that which teaches one how to serve God. As soon as one comes to serve God without any motive, immediately he becomes satisfied. Yayatma suprasidati. As a 5-year-old boy, Dhruva Maharaj was insulted by his stepmother. Still, he wanted his father's kingdom. So his mother advised him, only God can help you. Immediately, Dhruva went to the forest to find God. But when he actually saw God, he said, my Lord, I do not want anything. I am fully satisfied. I came looking for some pieces of broken glass, but now I have found the most valuable jewel. When one discovers his eternal relationship with God, he feels, I have nothing more to ask. And to bring a man to feel, I have no more demands, I am fully satisfied, is the best service. And Srila Prabhupada went on and he explained more, but he convinced me that as far as my desire to serve humanity, giving them Krishna consciousness was the best service to humankind.
Maharaj, one last question which we have in the chat window. With your kind permission, may I ask you?
Yes.
Okay. Hare Krishna Maharaj, this is from Arjuna and Prabhu. Please accept my humble obeisances. How do we cultivate that level of sincerity that we can overcome obstacles in our devotional path?
Yes. Who is it from?
Arjunanand.
Okay.
Arjunanand Prabhu is from Boston.
Okay. Sincerity. Srila Prabhupada has given two answers about sincerity. One, that if you want to be sincere, you should follow all the instructions of the spiritual master, no matter how big or small. And the other answer he gave is if you want to be sincere, you should associate with sincere devotees. So I try to do both, but I think in a way it's easier to just associate with sincere devotees. And of course, when you associate with sincere devotees, you become more sincere and take up the instructions of the spiritual master. I'm so grateful to Srila Prabhupada's disciples, my God brothers and God sisters, such sincere devotees, and even grand disciples, not just disciples. So they're really. I couldn't do it without them. Definitely not.
Thank you, Maharaj. I don't know. Maharaj, there is one more hand which is raised from Akrura Prabhu and Kamala Sundari Dasi.
All right.
Okay. So please unmute yourself and ask the question.
Hare Krishna Guru Maharaj, Hare Krishna devotees, please accept my humble obeisances. All glory to Srila Prabhupada. It's actually more of a comment, but I'm not sure if there's time, so the host can let me know.
Maharaj has given the permission, Mataji.
Yeah, okay. So thank you, Guru Maharaj, for being here presently and bringing to the presence of Srila Bhakti Charu Swami Maharaj and Srila Prabhupada. And it made me think of one incident when I was in LA, California, serving you and Bhakti Charu Maharaj. And we were at, I can't remember, someone's house. And Maharaj, I was waiting to serve the both of you. And Maharaj saw me there and he was wondering who I was. And then he asked me, what's your name? And I told him my name, and then he asked me, okay, where are you from? And I told him Durban, and he asked me, what's my husband's name? And I told him, and he said, okay. And I was just happy to be there to serve you and him. Actually, I was just so happy. And then we did the serve out, and I sat down, and Maharaj looked at me, and he said, but what about Kamal Sundari? Did she take prasad? And it was so touching because, like, just with so much of love, no judgment, he was worried about me, but I was happy there to serve him. And I think it's moments like these that are really it's such blessings. So thank you, Guru Maharaj, for bringing through these amazing realizations. Hare Krishna.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that beautiful incident with us. That's so typical of His Holiness Bhakti True Swami Maharaj. It's so caring, loving and caring.
Thank you, Maharaj. Really, it was a wonderful class, Maharaj. We are indebted to you for sparing your valuable time with us. And I feel so overwhelmed with emotions because, I never expected that you will answer my email and you will agree to my request. Thank you, Maharaj. From the bottom of my heart, I would like to express my gratitude, and especially on behalf of entire ISKCON Boston, because on this auspicious occasion of the 50th installation anniversary of Shri Radha Gopalabha, we wanted such a holy person, such an exalted person, to address and to be part of our festivity. And indeed, Shri Radha Gopalabha has considered our request. So thank you, Riya Maharaj. We really appreciate that. I just would like to comment one thing, Maharaj. I was doing some college preaching a few years before. And in one college, somebody asked me, what is surrender? I explained him, but I could not satisfy his question. Then again, in another university, the same question came somehow in the discussion. But again, I could not satisfy the person. The third time in the temple, somebody asked me the question. By then, I have read your articles and your and also your book. And then I told them, okay, if you want to know surrender, then please read about His Holiness Giriraj Swami, the perfect example to know what is surrender. And I said to him, if you, just like in Google, you have some keywords, and by the keywords, you can find out that exact thing what you have. So in ISKCON, we have some keywords. If you want to know surrender, if you want to know humility, Guru Nishtha, okay, and dedication, then you will get only one answer. That is His Holiness Giriraj Swami Maharaj. Okay, we are indeed grateful to you, Maharaj. And heart is really overwhelming with so many emotions. But thank you once again on behalf of ISKCON Boston. Indeed, we are so fortunate to have you on today's Sunday Feast talk. For this month-long series, we were having so many different devotees, and we are blessed to have you today. Thank you once again. Hare Krishna. Maharaj, just on August 8th, we are going to have the actual day of festivity on that day, where we will be having in the morning His Holiness Niranjan Swami, who will be speaking at 8 o'clock. Followed by that, His Holiness Radhanath Swami will speak at 10 o'clock. And then at the prime time, at 5 o'clock, Maharaj, His Holiness Satsarup Maharaj will be speaking. And then after that, we'll be having the Abhishek ceremony at 6:30 p.m. A day before, we are also going to have a memory sharing, a realization program, 9 o'clock on August 7th. So many of your God brothers would be there also, including Her Grace Rukmini Mataji, who was there with you. So she will also share something, and some other devotees would be there. So I wanted to brief this to all the devotees along with you. Once again, thank you, Maharaj. And I would like to also take this opportunity and thank all the devotees who have joined to hear from Maharaj from different places. And many of us, we do not know who you are, but yes, we take this opportunity and express our gratitude for being part of this ISKCON Boston session. So we also would like to welcome you to please be part of our festivity on August 7th and August 8th if you have the time. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Can you email me that poster that has the different times and the different speakers?
Yes, Maharaj, I will do that. Definitely. I will send you. Yeah.